Today is day 4 for the Come Follow Me study for this week, February 23rd through March 1st. Is anything too hard for the Lord? Genesis 18 through 23. Thursday, February 26th, 2026, Genesis 21. Sarah bears Isaac. Genesis 21, 1 through 3. And the Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did unto Sarah as he had spoken by the mouth of his angels. And Sarah conceived and bare Abraham a son in his old age, at the set time of which the angels of God had spoken to him. And Abraham called the name of his son that was born unto him, whom Sarah bare unto him, Isaac. Isaac is circumcised. Genesis 21:4. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac, being 8 days old, as God had commanded him. Josephus said, and they circumcised him upon the 8th day, and from that time the Jews continued the custom of circumcising their sons within that number of days. But as for the Arabians, they circumcise after the 13th year, because Ishmael, the founder of their nation, who was born to Abraham of the concubine, was circumcised at that age. Genesis 21, 5 through 8. And Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born unto him. And Sarah said, God hath made me to rejoice, and also all that know me will rejoice with me. And she said unto Abraham, who would have said that Sarah should have given children suck? For I was barren, but the Lord promised, and I have borne unto Abraham a son in his old age. And the child grew and was weaned. And the day that Isaac was weaned, Abraham made a great feast. Camille Frank Olson said, because of high infant mortality, families celebrated the milestone of a child's survival at his weaning. The ceremonial event has long been marked in parts of the Middle East by feasting and a ritual offering the soft, solid food to a child. Records of ancient contracts show that wet nurses were hired for as long as 3 years, indicating Isaac's approximate age when Sarah weaned him. Postponing a child's weaning for 3 years may also reflect a mother's attempt to strengthen her child to survive the perilous diseases of infancy. Hagar and her son are cast out of Abraham's house. Genesis 21, 9 through 10. And Sarah saw the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, which Hagar had borne unto Abraham, mocking, and she was troubled. Wherefore she said unto Abraham, cast out this bondwoman and her son, for the son of this bondwoman shall not be heir with my son Isaac. Josephus said, as for Sarah, she at first loved Ishmael, who was born of her own handmaid Hagar, with an affection not inferior to that of her own son, for he was brought up in order to succeed in the government. But when she herself had borne Isaac, she was not willing that Ishmael should be brought up with him, as being too old for him and able to do him injuries when their father should be dead. She therefore persuaded Abraham to send him and his mother to some distant country. Genesis 21, 11 through 12. And this thing was very grievous unto Abraham because of his son. And God said unto Abraham, let it not be grievous in thy sight because of the lad and because of thy bondwoman. In all that Sarah has said unto thee, hearken unto her voice, for in Isaac shall thy seed be called. Elder Marky Peterson said, nations, kings, prince, and multitudes were to come from Abraham through both Isaac and Ishmael. But the Lord's covenant would be with Isaac. This was confirmed when the Lord spoke further to Abraham as he grieved over the dispute between Sarah and Hagar and the future of his son Ishmael. The Lord said, let it not be grievous in thy sight because of the lad Ishmael, and because of thy bondwoman. In all that Sarah hath said unto thee, hearken unto her voice, for in Isaac shall thy seed be called. There was no misunderstanding that language. Ishmael would be greatly blessed, but the covenant was to be with Isaac. The Lord was obviously selecting a particular parentage for his chosen people, and Ishmael's descendants were not included. This principle was repeated in the selection of Jacob over Esau. Again, the covenant was only with Jacob. Esau, too, was to become a great people. But as the Lord had said to Abraham, in Isaac thy seed shall be called. Even so now it is in Jacob that thy seed shall be called. Only in Isaac, only in Jacob. There was a definite narrowing of the seed. The lineage of Abraham, though accounting for many nations, had but one select line in which the special blessings were promised. Why were some thus favored over others? Was not the Lord always just? The scriptures make it clear that he is no respecter of persons. What is the explanation? President Joseph Fielding Smith, in his book, The Way to Perfection, says, "Our place among the tribes and nations evidently was assigned to us by the Lord. That there was an assignment of this kind before earth life began is a declaration in the scriptures. Certain spirits were chosen to come through the lineage of Abraham, and this choice was made in the beginning. Other selections were also made, and the nations determined upon by the councils in the heavens." Genesis 21:13. And also of the son of the bondwoman will I make a nation, because he is thy seed. Although the Lord declared that the Abrahamic covenant would continue through Isaac, Ishmael also played a role in the fulfillment of Abraham's promised blessings, particularly the promise that Abraham's posterity would be as innumerable as the dust of the earth. When Ishmael was in Hagar's womb, the Lord promised that he would multiply Hagar's seed exceedingly. Later, the Lord told Abraham that of Ishmael he would make a nation, because he is thy seed. Genesis 21:14. And Abraham arose early in the morning, and took bread and a bottle of water, and gave unto Hagar. And she took the child, and he sent her away. And she departed, and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. Elder Marky Peterson said, "Feuds between brothers are the most bitter of all, and when they extend over generations of time, the scars run deep, seemingly never to heal. Are Jews and Arabs really brothers? Is enmity within that relationship at the seat of their present troubles? Can family strife never end? Today's conflict in Palestine runs back to a celebration held nearly 4,000 years ago in the tents of Abraham, the friend of God. His favorite son Isaac was being weaned, and in accordance with the prevailing custom, the fatted calf was killed and the family held a feast. Ishmael mocked Isaac. Sarah saw what he did and was deeply troubled. Enraged by Ishmael's insult, she said unto Abraham, "Cast out this bondwoman and her son, for the son of this bondwoman shall not be heir with my son, even with Isaac." And the thing was very grievous in Abraham's sight. Thus began the conflict that still rages today. Will the Arabs and the Jews never make peace? Is there nothing that can settle their dispute and leave both parties satisfied? Palestine, the holy land of promise, is the bone of their present contention. Both peoples lay claim to it, since both regard Abraham as their eminent progenitor. The Jews insist that the land is theirs through divine covenant, given by God to their great forefather. But the Arabs do the same and insist that they are as much blood descendants of Abraham as the Jews. In addition, they claim their right to the land by actual possession. They took it over when the Jews left. Israel, scattered and hated, allowed centuries to pass by without making so much as an isolated claim to their homeland. So the Arabs moved in, feeling fully justified. Hadn't the Lord made great promises to Ishmael and told him that he, as well as Isaac, would become a great people, even with royalty arising in his lineage? The Almighty certainly said that both Isaac and Ishmael would sire nations, princes, and kings. Many nations were to come from Abraham, not Israel alone. Would God discriminate against any one of them? And if so, why? The Arabs remind the Jews, and none too gently, that Ishmael was the firstborn of Abraham's children, with Isaac second. They ask in all confidence, do not firstborn sons always enjoy prior rights over others in the family? Is not the firstborn the legal heir? The Jews rely on Scripture to sustain their position, but so do the Arabs on their own scriptures, which declare Ishmael to be the Lord's prophet and Abraham the founder of the Islamic religion. So again, there is a standoff. Ever since that feast day 4,000 years ago, Ishmael has been the enemy of Isaac. and he still is. The bitterness handed down through the centuries may yet engulf the entire world in war. Will it be Armageddon, involving all nations? Is it no wonder that Western powers bend every effort to make peace in the Holy Land and avoid further open conflict? The Lord saves Hagar and Ishmael. Genesis 21:15 through 19. And it came to pass that the water was spent in the bottle, and she cast the child under one of the shrubs. And she went and sat her down over against the child a good way off, as it were a bowshot. For she said, Let me not see the death of the child. And she sat over against the child, and lifted up her voice, and wept. And God heard the voice of the lad, and the angel of the Lord called to Hagar out of heaven, and said unto her, What aileth thee, Hagar? Fear not, for God hath heard the voice of the lad, where he lieth. Arise, lift up the lad, and hold him in thine hand, for I will make of him a great nation. And God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water, and she went and filled the bottle with water and gave the lad drink. President Brigham Young said, May God open your eyes and the eyes of every honest person, that we may see things as they are and secure for ourselves that eternal rest we are looking for. Genesis 21:20 through 21. And God was with the lad, and he grew, and dwelt in the wilderness, and became an archer. And he dwelt in the wilderness of Paran, he and his mother, and he took him a wife out of the land of Egypt. Abraham and Abimelech deal honorably with each other. Genesis 21:22 through 27. And it came to pass at that time that Abimelech and Phicol, the chief captain of his host, spake unto Abraham, saying, God is with thee in all that thou doest. Now therefore swear unto me here that by the help of God thou wilt not deal falsely with me, nor with thy son, nor with thy son's son, but that according to the kindness that I have shown unto thee, thou shalt do unto me and to the land wherein thou hast sojourned. And Abraham said, I will swear. And Abraham reproved Abimelech because of a well of water, which Abimelech's servants had violently taken away. And Abimelech said, Thou didst not tell me, and I know not who hath done this thing. Neither yet have I heard that it was done until this day. And Abraham took sheep and oxen and gave them unto Abimelech, and both of them made a covenant. Hugh Nibley said, The wonderful thing about Abraham is that he always does the right thing no matter what anybody else does. He had to get along with all sorts of people, most of them rascals, and he treats them all with equal courtesy. And then there are various examples. We go through quite a number of them. And the saying from Midrash Rabbah, If Abraham does not play fair, who will? His passion for fair play breaks all records in his pleading for the wicked cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, to whom he owed nothing but trouble. He knew all about their awful wickedness, but still, Josephus observes, he felt sorry for them because they were his friends and neighbors. Genesis 21:28 through 34. And Abraham set 7 ewe lambs of the flock by themselves. And Abimelech said unto Abraham, What wilt thou do with these 7 ewe lambs, which thou hast set by themselves? And he said, 7 ewe lambs shalt thou take of my hand, that they may be a witness unto me, that I have digged this well. And because they swear, both of them, wherefore he called that place Beersheba. And thus they made a covenant at Beersheba. Then Abimelech and Phicol, the chief captain of his host, rose up, and Phicol, the chief captain of his host, and they returned into the land of the Philistines. And Abraham planted a grove in Beersheba, and called there on the name of the Lord, the everlasting God. And Abraham worshipped the everlasting God, and sojourned in the land of the Philistines many days.